This episode is brought to you by the 25X Productivity System Live, our 2-day workshop where you'll discover the 25 skills to master productivity so you have more time freedom, more energy in your life, and more capacity to focus on what moves the needle. Learn more at theproductivityshow.com/events. Welcome to The Productivity Show, a podcast where we believe you can get the important things done without sacrificing your health, family, and things that matter to you. My name is Brooks Duncan, the COO of Asian Efficiency, where we help people become more productive at work and in life. And today is another Wisdom Wednesday episode, where you'll get actionable productivity advice in less than 10 minutes. And the topic today is rolling with the punches. It's one of the skills we teach in our 25X Productivity System course. And here is a question for you. Have you ever been in the zone? You know, you're totally locked in, you're making progress, time is flying by, and just everything is falling into place for you. Well, today's episode is about the complete opposite of that. It's about when something disrupts what you set out to do. It's about when you just aren't feeling up to it. Maybe some roadblock comes up. I actually had this happen this morning. My morning plan was to upload and schedule some podcasts. I had planned out my day. That's what I was going to do. And then I found out that I couldn't log into our podcast host. Their site was down or something. There was just literally no way that I could do what I needed to do. It was just so frustrating. I guess if you're hearing this, though, the problem is fixed. Parents will also be very familiar with this. Maybe you have a busy workday planned, and then your kid crawls into bed, or you get a phone call from school because they're sick. So much for your perfectly planned time blocks. Or, maybe you needed a colleague's input on something, or we're going to collaborate with them, and then you roll in and all of a sudden they're not at work. They're gone, they're sick, something. What the heck do you do? And as you can see, sometimes things happen that are completely out of our control, and sometimes they are in our control, but, let's face it, we kind of screwed up. It's really easy to be productive when things are going well, but it's a real productivity superpower to be able to roll with the punches when things just seem like they're falling apart. So then the question is, of course, how do you do that? Well, part of it's mindset related, and part of it is more practical, and we're actually going to talk about both. So let's start with the roll with the punches mindset, as I call it. It's the mindset to handle it when things can go wrong. And first, let's be honest. The thing that has us so worked up, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not that big of a deal. And I don't mean that in a, how can you care about your CRM being down when people don't have clean water type of way. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, me not being able to schedule my podcast this morning, chances are by the time I finish recording this, it's probably going to be fixed and I can do it then. Or the time that my son injured his ankle at soccer and I had to spend most of Wednesday at the hospital. Honestly, I was able to get most of the things done that I wanted to do that day in the waiting room from my laptop, and the rest, it was fine to do the next day. More often than not, we want to work on something at a certain time, but we don't strictly have to. And that thing that's a big deal now probably won't seem like it in a few days, or maybe even in a few hours. So that's the first mindset. The second mindset is when there's a failure on our part involved, it's really important to externalize it. Remember that what you do does not necessarily mean that's who you are. You get to decide that. So just because, hypothetically, you ate a Chip-It's Cherry Jewel bar at 9 p.m., that doesn't mean that you always overeat or you don't have discipline. It just means that you made a potentially less than ideal decision that time. You have an opportunity to reframe and make a different decision tomorrow. And it's the same with anything. You control what you do, and that influences who you want to be. You are completely in control. And by the way, sometimes when things come up, we need to reframe what being productive means in that moment. If we wake up feeling sick, maybe the move is not to, hashtag rise and grind and push through it. Maybe it's good enough just to skim through things and look for anything critical and ignore everything else. Or maybe even better, the move is to just go back to bed and deal with it tomorrow. So those are some mindsets to think about when it comes to rolling with the punches, but there's more tactical stuff too. What do you actually do when things start to fall apart? And of course, there's lots of things that you can do, both ahead of time and in the moment, but here's a few of them. The first is when you plan your day, try to leave some white space to account for things that pop up. This is something we hear all the time. People saying they just pack their day too tightly. And it can be really tempting to hyperschedule every moment of your entire day. But if you leave yourself some breathing room, you have a much better chance of rolling with things that come up. So that's the first thing. Next, what you want to do is be on top of your task list and be ready to switch things up when needed. For example, this morning when I couldn't log into my podcast system, I spent about a minute being frustrated. It's probably a good thing that I work from home alone. But then, I switched to working on this thing that you're listening to right now. I wasn't planning on doing this right now, but things happen. There's always something else you can switch to if you're ready for it and flexible. Next, ask yourself, what is standing in the way of me getting stuff done? Sometimes there's honestly nothing you can do, like me not being able to log into the system. I can't fix that. But sometimes there is a roadblock that you can remove. Another great question is there a simpler version of something that I can do? Maybe your CRM is down, so you can't look up a client's phone number and purchase history, but maybe you can search your email and find the phone number there. And maybe there'll be enough information there to at least touch base. It's not what you plan to do, but maybe it's a simpler version. And a lot of times we can break things down and do a simplified version of that thing that we're stuck on. So these are just a few ways that you can roll with the punches. And like I said, this ability is a productivity superpower. I'm sure you've worked with some people who just throw their hands up when something goes wrong, but we want to be those productive people who can do things even with roadblocks. So here's how to get started. Next time you do your daily planning, try to leave some white space. Then, next time something blows up, and it always does, try to apply these mindsets and tactics to roll with the punches. Things, I promise, will be better tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening to The Productivity Show, and I'll see you next time.